The best-known article that first attracted a great deal of attention about a creature was published on May 2, 1933 in the Inverness Courier, about a large beast or whale-like fish. The article by Alex Campbell, water bailiff for Loch Ness and a part-time journalist, discussed a sighting by Aldi Mackay of an enormous creature with the body of a whale rolling in the water in the loch while she and her husband John were driving on the A82 on April 15, 1933. The word monster was reportedly applied for the first time in Campbell's article, although some reports claim that it was coined by editor Evan Barron. The Courier in 2017 published excerpts from the Campbell article, which had been titled, "Strange Spectacle in Loch Ness." The creature disported itself, rolling and plunging for fully a minute, its body resembling that of a whale, and the water cascading and churning like a simmering cauldron. Soon, however, it disappeared in a boiling mess of foam. Both onlookers confessed that there was something uncanny about the whole thing, for they realized that here was no ordinary denizen of the depths, because, apart from its enormous size, the beast, in taking the final plunge, sent out waves that were big enough to have been caused by a passing steamer. According to a 2013 article, Mackay said that she had yelled, "Stop!" the beast, when viewing the spectacle. In the late 1980s, a naturalist interviewed Aldi Mackay and she admitted to knowing that there had been an oral tradition of a beast in the loch well before her claimed sighting. Alex Campbell's 1933 article also stated that Loch Ness has for generations been credited with being the home of a fearsome-looking monster. On January 5, 1934, a motorcyclist, Arthur Grant, claimed to have nearly hit the creature while approaching Aubrayakin near the northeastern end of the loch at about 1 a.m. on a moonlit night. According to Grant, it had a small head attached to a long neck. The creature saw him, and crossed the road back to the loch. Grant, a veterinary student, described it as a cross between a seal and a plesiosaur. He said he dismounted and followed it to the loch, but saw only ripples. Grant produced a sketch of the creature that was examined by zoologist Maurice Burton, who stated it was consistent with the appearance and behavior of an otter. Regarding the long size of the creature reported by Grant, it has been suggested that this was a faulty observation due to the poor light conditions. Paleontologist Darren Naish has suggested that Grant may have seen either an otter or a seal and exaggerated his sighting over time. Around 1 a.m. on a moonlit night, January 5, 1934, Grant spotted a large object waddling across the road from the loch toward a nearby peat bog. Description: he described it as a cross between a seal and a plesiosaur, roughly 15 to 20 feet long with a long, serpentine neck and a small head. He noted it had hefty body and distinct front flippers. As Grant approached, the creature reportedly turned its head toward him, emitted a strange, high-pitched whinny, and then accelerated into a lumbering gallop, before plunging into the loch. Modern interest in the monster was sparked by a sighting on July 22, 1933, when George Spicer and his wife saw a most extraordinary form of animal cross the road in front of their car. They described the creature as having a large body about 4 feet 1.2 meter high and 25 feet 7.6 meter long and a long, wavy, narrow neck, slightly thicker than an elephant's. trunk and as long as the 10-12 foot 3 to 4 meter width of the road. They saw no limbs. It lurched across the road toward the loch 20 yards 18 meter away, leaving a trail of broken undergrowth in its wake. Spicer described it as the nearest approach to a dragon or prehistoric animal that I have ever seen in my life, and as having a long neck, which moved up and down in the manner of a scenic railway. It had an animal in its mouth and had a body that was fairly big, with a high back, but if there were any feet they must have been of the web kind. And as for a tail I cannot say, as it moved so rapidly, and when we got to the spot it had probably disappeared into the loch. Though he was the first to describe the creature as a plesiosaur-like dinosaur, evidence suggested by researchers at Columbia University in 2013 proved his story to be fake. The university and Daniel Loxton suggested that Spicer's sighting was fictionalized and inspired by a long-necked dinosaur that rises out of a lake in King Kong, a film that was extremely popular in cinemas in his home city of London during August 1933, when Spicer reported the sighting. Loxton and Donald Prothero later cited King Kong as evidently an influence on the Loch Ness Monster myth. On August 4, 1933, the Courier published a report of Spicer's sighting. This sighting triggered a massive amount of public interest and an uptick in alleged sightings, leading to the solidification of the actual name, Loch Ness Monster. It has been claimed that sightings of the monster increased after a road was built along the loch in early 1933, bringing workers and tourists to the formerly isolated area. However, Binns has described this as the myth of the Lonely Loch, as it was far from isolated before then, due to the construction of the Caledonian Canal. In the 1930s, the existing road by the side of the loch was given a serious upgrade. Hugh Gray, 1933, Monster. In 1933, Hugh Gray captured the first ever photograph of what would become a global legend, the Loch Ness Monster. Hugh Gray's photograph taken near Foyers on November 12, 1933 was the first photograph alleged to depict the monster. It was slightly blurred, and it has been noted that if one looks closely the head of a dog can be seen. Gray had taken his Labrador for a walk that day, and it is suspected that the photograph depicts his dog fetching a stick from the loch. Others have suggested that the photograph depicts an otter or a swan. The original negative was lost. However, in 1963, Maurice Burton came into possession of two lantern slides, contact positives from th original negative, and when projected onto a screen they revealed an otter rolling at the surface in characteristic fashion. Image: Gray snapped 5 photos, but only one survived the developing process. It shows a blurry, grey, serpentine shape breaking the surface. The Scottish Daily Record published the photo, sparking monster mania and establishing Nessie as a modern phenomenon. Labrador theory: skeptics and later researchers, including Maurice Burton, suggested the photo actually shows Gray's Labrador dog swimming toward the camera with a stick in its mouth. Alternative theories: other interpretations suggest the shape could be an otter rolling on the surface or a swan. Despite the debate over its authenticity, Gray's photo remains a pivotal moment in cryptozoology, preceding the more famous, and later debunked, Surgeon's photograph of 1934. Would you like to see a breakdown of other famous hoaxes from Loch Ness, or perhaps a look at the modern scientific searches conducted in the loch. Surgeon's photograph, 1934, monster. A few seconds ago. The surgeon's photograph is the most iconic image of the Loch Ness Monster, published in the Daily Mail on April 21, 1934. It was attributed to Robert Kenneth Wilson, a London gynecologist, whose professional status lent the monster instant global credibility. The truth behind the image. The hoax. In 1994, it was revealed to be a deliberate fabrication orchestrated by Marmaduke Wetherell, a big game hunter seeking revenge after the Daily Mail ridiculed him for finding fake hippofoot monster tracks. Monster. The object was actually a toy submarine bought from F.W. Woolworth, fitted with a head and neck sculpted from wood putty by Wetherell's stepson, Christian Sperling. While the cropped version makes the creature look massive, the uncropped original reveals the monster was only about 1 foot tall. The Doctor's role. Wilson was merely a frontman chosen for his respectable reputation. He did not actually take the photo but agreed to submit it as a practical joke. Despite being a proven fake, the photograph defined the plesiosaur look of Nessie for nearly a century and remains a primary marketing template for tourism in the Scottish Highlands. Are you interested in seeing other famous hoaxes from that era, or would you like to know about the modern scientific searches, like DNA testing, for the monster?